recording. Okie dokie. So, yeah, today the power of trim sheets. You will need a plug-in, which you saw me getting the page up just before. Hang on, here it is. It's called GrabDoc. You can get it off GitHub. It's absolutely brilliant. You literally just click on latest, or for whichever version of Blender you have. I've got a slightly older version because I use an older version of Blender just for convenience and comfort, I guess. Although, incidentally, if you're not aware, the latest proper release of Blender now uses Vulkan instead of OpenGL, which hugely speeds Blender up and makes it more performant on lower end graphics cards as well. So if you're struggling with the latest versions of Blender, I highly recommend giving that a go. But you do need to switch it over in the settings, in the preferences, to switch it over to Vulkan. I haven't played around with it enough myself to feel comfortable with the latest version of Blender yet, so I'm still on an old version, but I'm sure I'll be updating soon. But yeah, if you go to this website, github.com/GrabDoc, and you can download it here in the releases. There's a list of releases, and it's basically just a zip file that you download. If you don't know how to install add-ons, you go into Edit, Preferences, Install, under Add-ons. There'll be an extra tab called Extensions if you've got Blender 4 point something. Just hit Install in the Add-ons tab, and you find your zip file and just hit Install Add-on. And make sure once you've done it that you also tick, you'll see here I've got GrabDoc Pro there, just make sure it's ticked. And once that's done, you'll have an extra tab at the side called GrabDoc, and this is where the magic happens. So what I'm going to do is create a simple trim sheet. I've probably already been playing around with this actually. So I'll just get rid of anything that I've already got in here and we'll start again. And I think what I might do, no I won't, I'll just find it when I need it. So let's say I want to create, and what I used when I was playing around with it was a column, so I'll just do the same thing again so you can see exactly how it works. We could make a wall or whatever we wanted. I'm going to use a column for this one, and we need to create some kind of texture that's going to go on it. Now basically what a trim sheet is you'll have lots of different textures, quite often in the form of repeatable lines. So you could, for instance, just have a section going along a wall. It could be like a picture rail or something, for instance, or a decoration along the top of a wall or in the corner. And you would, when you unwrap your object, you make it fit the trim sheet, but only the part of the UV that needs to fit. I know that's probably not going to make much sense, but you will see exactly what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to save this as, save it into, I've got a folder I just called GrabDoc, which was me playing around folder, and I'm going to call it trim sheet to start with. And then we'll create another one for the object we're going to apply the trim sheet to. So, to make a trim sheet, just delete, in fact I'll just delete everything. I just hit A to select everything and the delete button. When you've got your GrabDoc tab open, just hit Setup Scene. And there it is, and you'll see a little arrow pointing the way it is. If I hit 7 on my numpad, it'll go into orthographic view and you'll see the arrow pointing exactly the way it's supposed to go. So this is the orientation for your trim sheet. So what I'm going to do is start with something reasonably simple. I'm just going to add in a column, I guess, like a cylinder. And we know, because this is the way it is with Blender, if I go up to item, nearly all objects you bring in are 2 meters on each dimension. And that's perfect because the standard size for GrabDoc, if we have a look here, is 2 meters. So I'm not going to change its height at all, but I am going to make it a lot thinner. And to do that, we hold down S for scale, but then if we do Shift and Z, so we're excluding Z from it, we're just making it thinner on the X and Y. And I'm going to just do something like that. And I'll also hit like right click, shade auto smooth. And you'll see down here with auto smooth, if I open up the normals, it means that anything that's 30 degrees or under is smoothed, and anything over that has a sharp edge. So because this is a 90-degree edge, it's not affected, but all the faces going around it are, because they are less than 30 degrees. So we've done that. I'm going to rotate it because I want it to lie flat. Thankfully it's right in the center anyway, automatically, and you can see the origin point is right in the center of the column. So I'm just going to press R, and we want to rotate it on the Y axis, which is the green one, and 90 degrees. And there it is. And I'll move it along the Y axis, so G for grab and Y, and I'll move it up. And this is going to be the first part of me trim, and it's exactly 2 meters wide that fits this kind of plane. So I can now go into material view and I can decide what I want to do with it. Am I going to make it metallic? Am I going to make it rough? What colour am I going to give it? So we're going to give it a material first of all, and we'll give it a colour. I haven't decided what colour yet. We'll say maybe a bluey colour, something like that. And we'll turn down the roughness so it's a bit shiny, or very shiny, maybe 0.1ish, something like that, 0.9, 0.09, I don't know, yeah, 0.1, because I like nice standard figures. So there is the trim we're going to put on it. I'm quite happy with that. So the next thing, let's just save it so I don't lose anything. I'll just pull this out a bit so you can see everything as well. You can see that the maps it's going to create are 2K, which is fine. I'll just leave it like that. We need to choose an export path. So I'm just going to choose the same folder I've got that I'm working with. And I guess just accept the folder, give it a name. I guess we'll just call it trim sheet, trim, whatever you like, whatever you want. Doesn't need to be 16-bit, 8-bit depth is fine. I'll open folder on exit because I like to be able to see the maps as soon as they're done, and then we've just got to decide what we need to export. So yes, we need the normals. Don't need any of these really. I could use occlusion, I guess. But for now, I'm just going to choose the albedo, the roughness, and the metallic, which are pretty standard for PBR textures, and the normals. So once you've done that, you just hit export maps. And it'll open up a folder once it's baked. And we've got these images. So we've got the colour, we've got the metallic, metalness. There isn't any, we didn't turn metallic up, so it's just black. We've got the normal map, and we've got the roughness. So now what we can do, we'll save that and we'll create a new scene, which I'm now going to, I guess we'll just call it, I'll just do what I did before. We'll just call it column because that's what I'm going to be working with. So I'll get rid of the cube and I'll add in a cylinder. I'm going to move it up. Actually, you know what, before I did that, I should have reduced the the number of faces a bit. So we'll change this from 32 to 16 just to half them, because we want it to be as low poly as possible. And we're going to be creating more geometry when we do some loop cuts anyway. So we'll move that up. I just did hit G, Z, and just typed in the number 1 on my numpad and enter. So it's moved it up by a meter. So it's exactly on the floor. And then I'll hit Control and A to apply, and I'm going to apply the scale. Except I haven't actually scaled it really, have I? So let's scale it. S, Shift and Z to exclude the Z. And I'll just make it maybe something like that. That'll do. And I'll actually do all. Control and A for everything. So I've applied the whole lot, and I'm now going to auto smooth it, and we're ready to start. So what we need to do first of all, actually I'll just stay in the look dev mode. What we want to do is unwrap it so that it unwraps nicely, and we can then get the texture applied properly. So I'm going to select, I've hit tab to go into edit mode, and then number 3 for face mode, and I'll select both of these faces, and I'll hit U for UV mapping, and we're going to select mark seam. You could just do U and M, and then because let's just assume I've already got this column in a seam somewhere, in a scene rather, somewhere, and there's going to be a standard or a certain view of it that you're going to see mostly. Normally when you're unwrapping things, you'll try and unwrap it so that any seams you might see in the texture will be hidden, or at least not so easy to see. Normally I would go to the back. If I've got an ornament on a table, for instance, and the table's near a wall, I'll unwrap the ornament so that the seams are at the back facing the wall, that kind of thing. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the back, or what you can do is hit Control and 1. 1 is front view and Control and 1 is back view. I'll hit 2 for edges, so 1 is vertices, 2 for edges, 3 for faces. I'm hitting 2 for the edge. I'll just select that back one, and I'll do the same again, mark seam. So now I can go into UV edit, and then you can see what happens if we select everything and hit U and unwrap, and it's unwrapped everything properly. I do want to give it a little bit of a margin, so I'll try maybe 0.03. That just allows for, if you do end up baking your textures, you need a little bit of a margin, and you don't want it to overlap onto your other islands. So we've got it unwrapped. The next thing is to actually create a material for it using the maps that we've just baked. So what we'll do is we'll go into shading, tab up the top here, and we'll create new, and I'm just going to call it, what'll I call it? I don't know. I guess we'll just call it trim, because that's what we call the maps. I'll just move that up and make it a little bit bigger. And the easiest thing to do here, in my opinion, you can go, you know, normally what most people do is they would add a texture, an image texture, and they'd open and go looking for the maps. I don't do that. I tend to just, if I've got the folder open, I just drag them in. That's the easiest thing to do, and then I can just plug it in. So there's the albedo. I'll just minimize that and bring in the others. We've also got metalness. We'll be adding to this, so I am going to use it. This is what's known as a grayscale map, because we don't use colour. It's literally just using values from 0 to 1 to tell it how metallic each pixel is. So we change this from RGB to non-colour, and then plug that into the metallic. We'll bring in the roughness next. Again, that needs to be non-colour, and we'll plug that into the roughness. And then even though the normal has a colour, we still mark that as non-colour data. And I'll bring that down because the normal plug is down here, the socket rather. And I usually just plug it straight in and then add with Shift A and S for search, and I just search for normal map node and just stick it in the middle, and it automatically joins it all together. So there is our, when we go into material view, there is our texture map that we've just created, or rather our PBR texture. Now, what I might want to do is have this trim at the top and the bottom, and that's not hard to do. What I would normally do, let's say I wanted that closer to the top and pretty close to the bottom as well. Easy way of doing this is to go into edit mode with the tab key, Control and R to add a loop cut. I'll click, left click to confirm it, and right click to set it in place, and then I'm just going to bevel it with Control and B to bevel, and then you can pull your cursor out, and that way you can be sure that the edges are exactly the same distance between the top and bottom. So I'm going to pull it out like that. Now let's have a think. I think what I want to do is I'll just select everything so I can see where my edges are. Probably should have done that a little bit further, shouldn't I? Let's just go back here and see if I can select that edge. I'm using Alt here to select the actual full ring, not just one edge. So Alt and click selects the edge, and then Shift, Alt and click will add that selection. And then we'll scale it on the Z, make it a bit thinner, select everything, see what that's like. And then, you know what, I think what I'll do is I'll just unwrap it again. There we go. So, what I'm going to do, let's just go back into material view here so I can see it properly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'll go into face mode, and I'll select only these here. Is that what I'm doing? I haven't decided, you know, this is the thing. I haven't actually decided how I'm going to do this. Let's select this first of all and make it the full width of the image, because if I have any repeating kind of patterns, I want it to repeat properly. So what I'm going to do is select all of this bit, which is everything except the top and the bottom. I'll just hit N to bring up my end panel, and I'll put it right in the middle, so it needs to be 0.5 and 0.5 on the X and Y. And then I'm just going to scale it up. So scale till it kind of comes to the edge of the texture. Now I know it's exactly fitting the textures that I'm using. So I'm going to select that edge again. I'm happy with where it is. I don't want to move it on the this is actually in this section, it's U and V are the coordinates, but you can use X and Y as well. If I was to do G for move and Y, it'll still move up and down. Or I could do G and V technically. No, doesn't like that. But yeah, they are technically U and V. So I'm going to move that. You can see it moving on the actual column there. This is the only bit we're concentrating on at the moment. So if I move that up and down, you can see I can get that bit of edge as close as possible to it. That's quite nice. I'm happy enough with that. And we'll do the same with the bottom. So I'll select that, and that's way down here. We'll move that up, and you'll see the pattern is coming into view there, which is, I'm quite happy with that. That's nice enough. And then these ones, I don't want them to have that pattern on. So all I'm going to do with them is I'm going to right click, merge at cursor, and it collapses all of them down in the corner. So they're not affected by anything because we haven't got anything on this part of the map anyway, and it's literally on 1 pixel. So it will inherit the background colour of whatever we're using. Now, other thing I did want to do, if I go back here, another thing I wanted to do was to go back to my trim sheet. So I'm going to open that up, save, and I want to also bake an alpha because this will be handy in a bit. So I'll just export the maps again. There we go. We've now got an alpha. So if I open up the column again, now what I can do is I can add another texture behind it and make it look like it is actually on a proper background. And I'm going to do that in the shading tab. So I'll just move these down for now, because I think, how am I going to do this? This is where I have to think about it as I go along. We'll bring in the alpha first of all, and I'll just plug it in there so you can see what's actually happening with it. Now what we want to do, if you multiply a black and white image, the reason I've created an alpha is because it will simply create a black and white image for me, which is exactly what I want. And if you multiply a black and white image with a colour or a texture, anything that's white, because it has a value of 1, will make the texture true, it'll show, and anything with a value of 0, which is black, the texture won't show at all. So this is actually the wrong way around, because the white bits are our trim, the black bit is where I want the texture to be. So I'm going to use an invert colour node, which I usually just use add search, or a shortcut is Shift and A and S, and search for invert colour, and I'll plug that in there. So that's what we want now. So now what I can do is I can bring in another texture, and in this case I am going to just bring in an image texture, and we'll search for it. I do know I've got one somewhere in me cathedral I want to use, which I think is in, have I got it? Where's me textures? There. This old sandstone will do. So we can now multiply this with this, and we should get a sandstone box with black lines. So to multiply them, we need a mix colour node. So again, Shift A and S, mix colour. There we go. Oh, failed to find because I typed it wrong. Mix colour, and we need to change it to multiply, and we'll multiply the old sandstone by the inverted colour, and we'll plug that in. It's not going to work to start with, but you'll see what it does. Now the blue bands haven't worked, and the reason is because of the factor. We need to turn that all the way up to 1 so we get the full strength of the alpha map. And you can see here we do kind of have a bit of sandstone, but because all of these ones here were collapsed, we need to do something else. So what I'm going to do is add in the easiest way, you know, is just to use Node Wrangler. If you haven't got Node Wrangler installed, please do it. It's built into Blender. It's either an extension or an add-on. I believe it's still an add-on. It's just in preferences, and just search for it up here. Node Wrangler, just tick it, because it makes things so much easier. You just need to add a texture setup and it'll automatically add mapping and texture coordinates. So the old sandstone, we're going to change from flat to box, and instead of UV, we're going to change from object to vector. And that's all you need to do. If you need to change the scale, you can change it here. I usually just add in a value node like that and just start it at 1, and then I can change it as and when needed. Because the value, if you plug it into the scale, it'll change it on, it'll keep it in proportion basically, because it'll change it along all the axes. So we've got that. The only thing we need now is to get the colour back here. And to do that, it's exactly the same as we've done before, but instead of using the inverted colour, we're going to use the original alpha and multiply the white bit by our albedo basically. So I'll just minimize these and put them up there. And we want, and actually what I'll do is I'll duplicate this with Shift and D. We'll bring in another multiply, and then I'll minimize that. Put that there. And I'm going to plug that into there. And that into there. Plug that in, and then you'll see that we've got black with the blue. And we've got sandstone with the black. So now what we need to do is add these together. So I'll duplicate this again. So instead of multiply, we'll change this to add. Add. And we'll plug that one into there, and that one into there, and that into there. And now we've got essentially a triplanar shader here, and then our trim sheet here. So now we've got the basics set up, we can have a bit play more with the trim sheet and see what else we can do with it. So I'll open up the trim sheet, and I'll do what I did last time and just, what's the easiest way? Add in a plane, which I'm going to move over to here. Maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to go into edit mode. We'll subdivide it by right clicking, and then if you pull this menu up, we'll drag that all the way up to 10, which is the maximum it'll go to. But then I'm going to right click and subdivide once more, so we've got plenty of geometry to work with. And then I'm going to use another add-on which is built into Blender. So preferences, do a search for extra objects and add curve. Also add mesh, because that's useful. You can do loads of extra things, but if you use extra objects, add curve, we're going to do something with that. So in this case, I'm going to just delete everything, all the faces except the top ones. Maybe actually the middle ones, because the object origin is there. So I'm just box selecting, I'm holding down Shift to do another box select. I just want to keep these ones. So I'll hit X and F for faces, delete faces, so I've just left with them. I'll come out of edit mode. I'll click add curve, and this is where the extra curves come in. Come down to knots and choose Celtic links. And it's actually put it right in the middle, which is fine. This is normally, whenever you've got geometry, this is usually showing like an icon that represents a mesh, but this is a curve, so it's a curve. Click on that, and then under geometry, you've got bevel depth. Just turn that down a bit. I usually use about 0.01, and we've got a nice kind of Celtic kind of knot design. But I'll just get rid of this because we're done with it now. It's not linked to the curve. I'm going to move this over again because I want to make this repeatable so it joins at the back. So you don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to worry about the geometry because we're just using it to bake the maps and we can delete it afterwards. So I'm going to convert this to a mesh and go into edit mode. And I want to cut this right down the centre of that last X shape and the same on the other side. But I think probably the easiest way, instead of cutting it, is let's just go into X-ray mode and tab into edit mode. Was I in edit mode? Yes, I was. 1 for vertices. And I want it to be, thankfully, there are some vertices right in the centre there, which is just what I want. So I'm going to put my cursor there. And I'm using Shift and S, cursor to vertex or vertices, because I've probably got more. Yes, I have selected, but that's fine. I'm just using the 1, 3 and 7 buttons on my numpad to go into orthographic mode. So 7 is a top-down view. And I basically want to select everything, I guess from the left of that. I don't know, possibly, maybe not. We'll just select everything that I think I've missed. Actually, let's try that again. We'll just select everything, including the centre, and make sure I haven't got any to the right that shouldn't be there. Probably isn't going to make much difference. Probably don't want that one. Probably don't want that one. But I reckon everything else is fine. So all I'm going to do is change this up here, which is your pivot point, your transform pivot point. We're going to change it to the 3D cursor as its reference, and I'm going to flatten everything so it's in line with this. So I'm just going to use scale, and then on the, is it the X probably, 0, yeah, there we go. And that's flattened the whole lot, which is just what we want. And then I'm going to do the same at the other end. So zoom in here, select those, put me cursor to vertex, select everything from just to the left of that. Make sure I haven't selected anything I don't need. Don't want to select that or that because that's a little bit to the left of it. The rest will be fine. I'm not too worried about it. So scale X0. That's flattened all of that. So now I need it to be exactly 2 meters long. And the easy way is just to go to item, and on the x-axis we want it to be 2 meters, and then it's changed the scale, so I'll copy that scale there just by hovering over it and hitting Control and C, and then I can hover over the other two, Control and V, and that's got it in perfect proportion. So I'm going to apply the scale, so this is all back to 1, Alt and G to pop it back in the center to the world origin, because the object origin hadn't moved. So now I just want to move this up a bit so I'm not wasting space on my trim sheet. So G and Y, move it up but not too close. We need a bit of padding for when we're unwrapping our bits and bobs. And let's give this a different material. So I'm going to make this, in fact I'll give this one a name, we'll call it gold. And we'll give it a goldy kind of colour, something like that maybe. And we'll make it metallic. I always turn metallic all the way up because I always think, well, it's either metal or it isn't. That's the way I think. And then I can adjust everything with a roughness. So I'm going to make the roughness about, yeah, maybe it's 0.2, something like that. So it's not like a mirror, but it's nice and shiny and gold. That'll do nicely. And then we just need to go back to GrabDoc export maps, because we've already got the same maps selected. There's our updated maps, it's overwritten them. So we're going to go back to our column. And hopefully when we go into shading, you should see, there it is, it's updated the maps in that file as well. So now we can go back to UV editing and we can have another think about where we're going to put this. Let's see, I'm going to just unwrap this section which is already selected, and I'm going to, let's have a think. I'll just move it. Yeah, I still want to scale it up, don't I? So we'll put it in the middle, scale it up so it fits the texture. I'm going to move it down, and then I'm going to again do a loop cut, bevel it, and you'll see on the pane to the left I can control, and if you hold down shift you can have much finer control as well. I'm just going to place that to just below that section there, and then you can see we've got that kind of Celtic knotwork fitting nicely. And then all we need to do is select this section. Ooh. And it's all the way down here. We just move it up on the Y till that fits correctly as well. And there we've used our trim sheet on there. And then this section, I'll just do the same thing. Merge, add cursor. And now we've got a bit of a Celtic trim to add to it, which is quite nice. Shall I have a think about what we're going to do with this top as well? I know it's, if this was a column in a building you wouldn't see it, but hey ho, it's not. It's just something I'm playing around with and it's cool and you can do some nice stuff. So let's go back to the trim sheet. Save that. Let's add in a circle. And I'm going to move it over a bit so I can, oh goodness gracious, actually you know what, I'm just going to put me cursor back to the world origin. So move that over to here so I can work on it. I'll go into edit mode, hit F for fill, and then I to inset. And I'm going to inset a couple of times and then just delete that face. And we'll do the same thing again with that Celtic knotwork. So we'll add a curve, knots, Celtic links. There it is there. Do the same thing again and just reduce the thickness a bit to whatever you think looks nice. I might leave it at 0.2, I don't know, I haven't decided. Yeah, I probably will. But then I want to make this a lot smaller because I just want it to fit the top of the column, and I'm going to stick it all the way down here. So any kind of loose bits and bobs I can put at the bottom, and any strips that I want repeating I can put at the top. Ooh, look at that. I'll just move that above the plane a bit. That's because I wasn't in orthographic view. As long as it's not hitting the edge of the plane, it's fine. And then I think I'll give that the same gold material that we had before. That'll do. And I'll export the maps. And then back to our column. And here, I want to go into edit mode rather, select the top, and we can literally, in fact I'm going to change this to the normal just so I know I'm not kind of overwriting any kind of sloped edges or anything. We'll select this circle and move it. And then we can just, you know, scale it down a bit, move it, get it nicely centered, scale it a bit more if you want it closer to the edge. But you can see we've already got a nice kind of trim around the circle as well. It just needs a bit of adjustment to where it is. Still a bit wonky. It often helps to view it in the viewport as well as on the UV pane as well. So let's just see if we can get that properly centered. That looks reasonable. And we'll do the same with the bottom. There is another add-on which I think I'll cover next week, which allows you to copy the UV coordinates for this section onto this section so they perfectly overlap and just work brilliantly as well. But like I say, we'll do that next week. So select all of that. I'm just going to zoom in there so I can scale. Ooh, do you hear my creaky door there? That's spooky. I'm surprised I haven't lost connection actually, because we're kind of in the middle of a electrical storm at the minute, or were just a short while ago. So I was kind of expecting to lose my internet. But yeah, there you go. Now we've got a nice circle as well, which is pretty cool. I don't know, what else are we going to do? We've got 10 minutes. If anybody's got any questions, you know, just pipe up. You don't need to like just sit in silence and watch me.
Little horses or something like that.
Little horses. Oh, goodness gracious. Now there's a thing. How would I do that? Because I can't sculpt horses. I would need to find either an image that I could create a normal map from, or maybe a sculpture of a horse. Shall we see if we can find a model of a horse and see if we can do something like that? Don't think it's going to be in there. Just let's see if there's any models. Ooh, look at that. Shall we use that one? Or maybe this head. This head might be nice.
I think the head one's better.
Let's see. Oh, I'm not going there. No, I'll not use that one. What about this one? I do trust this site. I use this all the time. Because we can maybe chop the base off, you know, at the end of the day. So yeah, I'll download that. It might take a while. Oh no. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't donate today. Maybe another time. Have I already downloaded that at some point? That's odd. And we'll extract that. Let's see what we've got. I don't really want the textures. I just want the model. I want Blender 4.4. No. I wonder if it's going to open in this version of Blender. Shall we try and append it? File, append. Where did I have it? In my downloads. Horse statue. Object. Horse statue. Append. Oh, look at that. We might have it working. Right in the middle. Right, well, we know it works, but I don't want it in here, do I? Because we want to make it like a texture of it. Is that what you meant? To add to the trim sheet? Right, okay, so we'll go back to the trim sheet. And we'll get rid of this. We don't need that now. File, append, horse statue. There he is. So, let's see what we can do with it first of all. We'll move it over here so I can see it properly. I wonder if I can just delete all of this. Shall we try just hitting L to get select. Yeah, we'll get rid of that.
Yeah.
Delete faces. We'll do that. L to select linked. No, that's not going to work. Might just have to do it with circle select. So say for circle, this is a nice easy way. Just select all the vertices you want rid of. Probably best to do it in X-ray mode, I think, maybe. I don't suppose it matters because it doesn't look like it's got an underside. Just select all of them. I'm sure there's quicker ways of doing this, but you know, this is just first thing that pops into me head when you're kind of put on the spot. So let's select. I want everything. Obviously, it's got the seams showing exactly where I'm meant to delete up to. So I'll just select all of them because they are clearly the base of the hooves.
Yeah.
Ooh, nearly there. Got one little rogue vertex there. Is that everything? No, there's that one. Right, let's try that. X and then V for vertices. And look, there's still a little bit there. We'll just get rid of them. Okay, so there's our horse. I'll go back to normal front view here. Let's move them over. In fact, no, let's just press Alt and G to get them back to the center. And we'll want to flip them over onto his side this way. So rotate on the X. This is another thing you can do, by the way. R for rotate and X, and if you hold down Control, it'll snap by the number of vertices, and you can see it's done -85. I want it to be -90, so he's exactly on his side. And we'll move him up to above the plane, and then just decide where he's going to go. I guess kind of down here seems reasonable, or maybe just above there might be an idea. I don't know. We'll put him down here. Yeah, that looks all right. And I guess we'll just leave him as like this white thing. It should be bake a normal and bake the shininess and everything else on him. So shall we give that a try and see what happens? Not done this before with a 3D model, but we'll see. Ooh, look at that. Got a little horsey. Shall we make him a bit bigger, actually? Let's make him a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do scale to... Goodness, what happened there? Scale... Oh, you know what it is. I've still got the transform pivot point set to the 3D cursor. I want the median point, which is basically the object's origin. So scale 2... There he is. We'll move him over a bit. Make sure he's still above the plane-ish. And bake. Export. Yeah. That looks okay for the roughness. Normal. That looks quite nice, that. Right, okay. So, we'll go back to our column. And where we're going to put the horse. Let's have a think. First thing we need to do is to... Helps if you have your object selected. First thing we need to do is to re-unwrap this section here. And put it to scale So scale, and then decide. Oh, look at our little horsey. Look at that. That looks cool. Decide where he's going to go.
Nice, that, actually.
Yeah. So where we're going to put him. We'll have him like maybe. We could maybe have could we have a few of them? I'm sure we could.
3 or 4 going round it.
Yeah. So he's currently fitting about 3 faces.
Yeah.
So we'll do it that way. We'll start off with these 3 faces, and I'm going to move them until the horse is in the right place. Yeah, that'll do. And then we'll do the next 3 faces. Just got to kind of get them lined up properly, that's all, so they don't, not all. Again, I'm going to cover it next week, but there is a way of getting them lined up perfectly. And we'll do that then. But for now, we're just going to eyeball it and get it as close as we can. And then we've got a spare one, which I guess we'll do not much with. It's at the back anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So I'm just going to collapse that one at the cursor. And then we need to create a loop cut, only this time I'm not going to right click, I'm just going to slide it down till it's above the horse's heads and select in face mode all of these and collapse them at the cursor. So now, if we go, wrong one, click onto layout, we've now got little white, shiny, looks like little porcelain horses going around the column.
It's quite effective, that.
Yeah. So you can, like I say, it's really cool doing it this way with GrabDoc, because you can use really high poly meshes to create some pretty awesome maps. I think that looks quite nice. So, yeah, you could even do, like, with normal maps and things, you could do, if you've got a model of an avatar and have an image of an avatar on something that looks almost 3D, that's quite effective as well. I have done that before. So yeah, you can see what I've been doing. All I've been doing is picking the bits of the UV map I want to use and collapsing everything else, and just relying on the triplanar part of the shader to texture it with the sandstone. So yeah, very handy way of decorating stuff, and all we've used is one set of maps. And I would even, when I come to put it into Unity and upload to Banter, I'd even do me channel packing. We could have used the ambient occlusion for this if we wanted, but I would pack me metallic and me roughness into one texture as well, the way I always do with me arm shaders, and that'll help optimize your project as well. But one material, one set of maps, and we've done all of that already today. Really cool. So yeah, I recommend having a play around with it. I'm going to put that that URL up again, github.com /d GrabDoc, and just get whichever version is the one that you need for your version of Blender. And it's absolutely awesome. So yeah, it's after 8 o'clock, so I'm going to stop the recording Thank you for coming along.